Listen, I have witnessed approximately 743 different species demonstrate their supposed superiority at the Galactic Summit. I have seen things that would make your exoskeleton crack. I have watched warriors tear through battle droids with their bare appendages, predators that could swallow starships whole, and creatures so toxic they could dissolve titanium just by breathing on it. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for what the humans brought. My name is Vorkath, Senior Coordinator for the Intergalactic Apex Exhibition, and honestly, I should have retired 3 cycles ago. But no, I had to stick around for one more summit, one more chance to see something that would surprise me. Well, congratulations, universe, you finally did it. You broke me. The whole thing started innocently enough. Every species attending the summit was required to bring a representative of their most formidable predator, their ultimate survival machine, their absolute peak of evolutionary dominance. It was supposed to be a show of strength, a biological peacocking contest that somehow convinced everyone to play nice for another decade. The Kraxons brought a 16-foot-tall monstrosity called a razorthorn. This thing had claws that could slice through starship hulls, 3 rows of teeth, and acid spit that could melt a hole through 5 inches of reinforced steel. Terrifying? Absolutely. The crowd went appropriately silent when it roared. Perfect. The Valorians, bless their pretentious little hearts, brought something called a shadow fang. It could phase through solid matter, had venom that caused complete neural shutdown in under 3 seconds, and moved so fast it appeared as nothing more than a blur, even on our high-speed cameras. When it demonstrated its hunting prowess on the provided targets, half the audience actually evacuated their waste disposal systems. Again, exactly what we were looking for. Then came the Thorixians with their void serpent, a creature that survived in the vacuum of space and crushed its prey with coils strong enough to collapse a small building. The Zephrites brought a swarm-mined predator that could strip the flesh off a full-grown Bromthar in 47 seconds. The Quilnari showcased their famous glass scorpions, which were invisible, silent, and absolutely lethal. You get the picture. Every species brought something that made you want to check under your sleeping pod before going into stasis. We are talking nightmare fuel, the stuff that makes grown warriors reconsider their career choices, the apex of apex predators. And then the humans arrived. Now, I had heard things about humans, rumors, mostly, stories that seemed too ridiculous to be true. They were persistence hunters, which sounded boring until you realized it meant they literally chased their prey until it died of exhaustion. They could survive injuries that would kill most species outright. They had something called adrenaline that essentially turned them into temporary berserkers. They ate poison for fun and called it spicy food. But what really got everyone talking was their pack-bonding instinct. Humans, apparently, would form emotional attachments to literally anything. They adopted predators as pets. They cried over fictional characters. They named their vehicles and weapons. It was bizarre, concerning, and frankly, a little disturbing. So when the human delegation walked into the exhibition hall, everyone was curious. What kind of monster would they bring? What horror had humanity deemed worthy of representing Earth? The delegation leader was a woman named Captain Valeria Stone. She looked professional enough in her crisp blue uniform, her dark hair pulled back in what humans called a bun, her expression completely neutral. She walked with confidence, flanked by 2 security officers who seemed just a bit too tense for comfort, and between them, holding Captain Stone's hand, was the smallest, roundest, most non-threatening creature I had ever seen in my entire life. The entire hall went silent, not the respectful, fearful silence we had been experiencing all day. No, this was confused silence. This was what the hell are we looking at silence. The creature was maybe 3 feet tall. It had a disproportionately large head with enormous eyes, the color of Earth's oceans. It was wearing what appeared to be miniature clothing covered in images of some kind of yellow absorption-based life form. In one tiny hand, it clutched a worn stuffed animal that looked like it had survived several wars. Its other hand gripped Captain Stone's with the kind of desperate intensity that suggested separation would result in immediate catastrophic failure. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings," Captain Stone announced, her voice carrying across the stunned hall, "may I present Earth's apex predator? This is Emma Rodriguez. She is 3 years old, and she is currently 17 minutes past her scheduled nap time." I looked at my assistant, Krill. Krill looked at me. We both looked at the human child. The human child looked at all 12,000 of us packed into the exhibition hall, and her lower lip began to tremble. "Is this a joke?" barked Commander Thraxis of the Craxon delegation, his translator making his outrage crystal clear. "You mock this summit by bringing your offspring. Where is your actual predator?" Captain Stone's expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes, something that made my survival instincts sit up and pay attention. "This is our actual predator, Commander, and I suggest you lower your voice. Emma does not like loud noises when she is tired." Thraxis made a sound that was probably laughter in Craxon biology. It sounded like rocks being ground together. This pathetic lava? This soft, weak thing? My species eats creatures larger than this for morning sustenance. The human child, Emma, was staring at Thraxis now. Her eyes had gone very wide. Her grip on the stuffed animal tightened. "Captain Stone," I said quickly, trying to salvage what was rapidly becoming the most awkward summit in history. "Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding. The summit rules clearly state that each species must present their apex predator, not their young." "I understand the rules perfectly, Coordinator Vorkath," Stone replied calmly. "And I have followed them exactly. Emma is, technically speaking, an apex predator, just perhaps not in the way you are expecting." Emma's lower lip was trembling more violently now. A soft whimpering sound emerged from her, barely audible but somehow carrying across the entire hall. "This is ridiculous," Thraxis continued, apparently possessing the self-preservation instincts of a particularly suicidal plasma mine. "I demand you present an actual threat, or Earth will be disqualified from the summit and banned from Galactic Council membership for the next century." The whimpering stopped. Emma took a deep breath, and then she screamed. "Now, I have heard a lot of sounds in my time as coordinator. I have heard battle roars, death wails, mating calls that could shatter glass, and war cries that could trigger avalanches. But I had never heard anything quite like this. This was not a roar. This was not a screech. This was a sound that bypassed the ears entirely and went straight to the part of your brain that controlled primal fear. It was shrill. It was loud. It oscillated at a frequency that made your internal organs vibrate uncomfortably, and it just kept going. The child apparently possessed lung capacity that defied her size, because the scream continued for a solid 15 seconds without pause or decrease in volume. When she finally stopped to breathe, the silence that followed was absolute. Then she threw her stuffed animal. It hit Thraxis directly in one of his 6 eyes. And that is when things really went sideways. "No, no, 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 no," Emma shrieked, her face turning a concerning shade of red. No like loud noise. No like mean lizard man." She dropped to the floor, which I had not realized was an option, and began what the humans apparently called a tantrum. She kicked her legs. She flailed her arms. She screamed words that I am fairly certain were not in any official human language. Her face cycled through several colors I did not know human faces could achieve. Captain Stone, to her credit, did not move. She simply stood there, watching her supposed apex predator have a complete psychological meltdown on the floor of the most important diplomatic venue in the galaxy. "As you can see," Stone said over the noise, "Emma is demonstrating classic apex predator behavior. She has identified a threat," Thraxis's loud voice, "and is responding with a display of dominance and territorial aggression." "That is not aggression," Thraxis roared. "That is a defective juvenile having a biological malfunction." Emma's screaming intensified. She was now trying to remove her shoes, which seemed like a completely unrelated activity but apparently was very important to her current emotional state. "I would not recommend standing too close," one of Stone's security officers said quietly. "She is a thrower when she gets like this." As if on cue, Emma successfully removed one shoe and hurled it with shocking accuracy. It sailed through the air in a perfect arc and struck Thraxis's communications device, shattering it on impact. The crowd gasped. That throw required aim, trajectory calculation, and force management. From a 3-year-old. Having a breakdown, Emma found her second shoe. Thraxis took a step back. "You see," Captain Stone continued, her tone absolutely conversational, as if she were discussing weather patterns rather than the complete destruction of diplomatic protocol happening at her feet. "Human children are actually quite dangerous. They possess surprising strength relative to their size, absolutely zero fear of consequences, and emotional regulation systems that are still under development. This makes them unpredictable, relentless, and highly effective at getting what they want. Emma was now attempting to bite her own arm, which seemed counterproductive, but was somehow more disturbing than anything else that had happened so far. They also have remarkable stamina, Stone added. Emma can maintain this level of activity for upward of 45 minutes before needing to recharge, and the more you try to stop her, the worse it gets. They are persistence predators in the truest sense. They will outlast you. They will break your will. They will make you question every life choice that led you to this moment. I had to admit, I was starting to question my life choices. Emma had progressed to stage 2 of her tantrum, which apparently involved trying to escape. She made a break for it, moving with shocking speed for someone so small. Captain Stone did not chase her. She simply pressed a button on her wrist device. One of the security officers stepped smoothly into Emma's path. Emma bounced off his leg, sat down hard, and the screaming reached new heights I had not thought physically possible. Want mama, want snack, want go home, now, now, now. Several species in the audience were covering their auditory sensors. The Valorians, who possessed particularly sensitive hearing, had actually evacuated the hall entirely. The Razorthorn, that massive killing machine from earlier, had retreated to the back of its containment field and was making soft, distressed noises. Emma had moved on to stage 3, which involved lying completely flat on the floor and occasionally kicking the ground while maintaining her ear-splitting vocalizations. The most dangerous part, Captain Stone continued, checking something on her datapad, is that humans are hardwired to respond to these sounds. Evolution designed this cry to be maximally distressing to adult humans, forcing us to address the child's needs immediately. We literally cannot ignore it without experiencing significant psychological stress. Now, imagine how you feel. Beings who lack this biological imperative and are still clearly affected. She had a point. I desperately wanted the noise to stop. I would have given Emma anything she wanted. Control of the summit, access to classified military databases, my personal transport vehicle, anything. Just please, please, make it stop. Additionally, Stone said, human children are incredibly durable. They heal rapidly from injuries, they can survive falls that would severely damage an adult, and they possess an almost supernatural ability to find and ingest toxic substances. They also require constant supervision because they lack any form of danger assessment. They will attempt to pet venomous creatures, climb unstable structures, and insert foreign objects into power outlets. They are essentially tiny self-destructive chaos engines that we must prevent from killing themselves every waking moment. Emma had found a stylus someone dropped and was attempting to eat it. One security officer gently removed it. Emma responded by trying to bite him. He dodged with the practiced ease of someone who had been through this before. Mine! Mine, 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 mine! Emma shrieked, reaching for the stylus. Now, Captain Stone said, let me demonstrate the true horror of human children. Emma, sweetie, would you like to see the nice alien's teeth? Emma stopped mid-scream, her head swiveled toward Captain Stone with unnerving speed. Teeth? Emma whispered, her eyes going wide with sudden interest. Yes, baby. Look at Commander Thraxis. See all those big teeth? I saw where this was going. I tried to signal to Thraxis to back away. He did not see me, or he saw me and chose to ignore the warning. Either way, it was too late. Emma stood up. Her face was still blotchy and wet. Her hair was sticking up in several directions, and one shoe was missing. But she was no longer screaming. She was focused. She walked directly toward Thraxis, who towered over her like a mountain over a pebble, and then she reached up with both tiny hands and grabbed his lower jaw. Wow, Emma breathed, her tantrum apparently forgotten in the face of this new fascination. Big, big teeth, so many teeth. Can I count them? Thraxis, to his credit, stood completely frozen. This small, soft thing that had been having a complete breakdown moments ago was now touching his teeth, one of the most dangerous parts of his anatomy, with absolutely no fear whatsoever. Her tiny fingers poked at his fangs with the kind of casual curiosity usually reserved for examining interesting rocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, Emma counted, her words slightly muffled because she had stuck her entire hand in his mouth. 5, 6, so many teeth. Do you brush them? Mama says I have to brush mine, but I only have little teeth. Captain Stone was smiling now. It was not a nice smile. Human children have no concept of appropriate danger response, she said. They see a creature that could kill them in seconds, and they want to pet it, study it, or become friends with it. We have to teach them fear because they are born without it, and while they are learning, they will attempt to befriend, examine, or adopt literally everything they encounter, including things that are actively trying to kill them. Emma had somehow climbed partially up Thraxis's arm and was attempting to look into his nostrils. Human babies, Stone continued, survive to adulthood not because they are careful, but because we are. Because we watch them constantly. Because we intervene before they drink bleach or stick forks in electrical sockets or wander into traffic. They are apex predators not through strength or speed, but through sheer determination to exist despite their complete lack of self-preservation instinct. They outlive threats through persistence, they charm potential dangers into allies, and they absolutely refuse to give up, no matter how many times you tell them no. Emma had found Thraxis's translator device. She pressed several buttons. His voice came out at triple speed. She giggled, a sound somehow more unsettling than the screaming. Additionally, Stone said, they learn constantly. Every experience, every interaction, every observation goes into their developing brain and shapes how they view the universe. Emma will remember this day. She will remember that alien species have teeth that can be counted, that some beings are very large but do not hurt her, that if she throws her shoe at someone, there are consequences but not dangerous ones. She is collecting data to build her understanding of reality, and she will use that data to become an even more effective human. Emma had tired of Thraxis and was now investigating my assistant Krill, who possessed 12 manipulator tentacles. Emma wanted to count those too. Tell me, Coordinator Vorkath, Captain Stone said, looking directly at me. Can your Razorthorn adapt its strategy based on social cues? Can your Shadow Fang learn new behaviors by observation? Can your Void Serpent manipulate others through emotional appeals? I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. Because Emma can, Stone finished, and in another 15 years, she will be an adult human with all the persistence, adaptability, and pack-bonding instincts of her species, plus all the learned knowledge we will spend those years teaching her. She will negotiate treaties, build alliances, or if necessary, fight with the same relentless determination she is currently applying to trying to braid Krill's tentacles. Emma had somehow managed to tie 3 of Krill's appendages together. Krill looked at me helplessly. So yes, Captain Stone concluded, Emma is Earth's apex predator. Not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most immediately dangerous, but given time, given social interaction, given the chance to learn and adapt and persist, I would bet on her over any creature in this hall. Emma had gotten bored with the tentacles and was now demanding a snack, a request she made at high volume while tugging on Captain Stone's uniform. Does anyone else wish to question Earth's choice of representative? Stone asked the crowd. Silence. Complete. Total silence. Emma sneezed, somehow got snot on 3 different species, and then asked if anyone had any juice boxes. I approved humanity's application for Galactic Council membership on the spot. Frankly, I was too exhausted to do anything else. And if this was what humans considered a normal 3-year-old, I truly did not want to see what they trained their actual soldiers to do. Captain Stone picked up Emma, retrieved the thrown shoe and the stuffed animal, and walked calmly toward the exit. We will see you all at the next summit, she called over her shoulder. Assuming Emma is awake. If not, we might bring her brother. He is 5, and he just learned about dinosaurs. The doors closed behind them. I stood there, surrounded by 12,000 beings from across the galaxy, all of us trying to process what we had just witnessed. Krill managed to untangle his tentacles. Sir, he said quietly, should we be concerned about humanity joining the council? I thought about Emma, about her screaming, about her fearlessness, about her absolute refusal to accept Thraxis's intimidation, about the way she had charmed and terrified us in equal measure. Yes, I said finally, yes, we should be very concerned, but it is too late now. In the distance, I could still hear Emma's voice echoing down the corridor, asking questions, demanding snacks, and probably counting someone else's teeth. Humanity had sent its apex predator, and we never stood a chance. 3 months after the summit, I received a communication from Captain Stone. The message was brief, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. It read, "Emma asks about you frequently. She wants to know if you would like to attend her birthday party. Also, the Council requested a follow-up demonstration of human apex predator behavior. We can accomplish both objectives simultaneously. Please confirm your attendance." I stared at the message for approximately 17 minutes. My assistant Krill found me like that, frozen at my desk, making a soft, wheezing sound that was probably not healthy. "Sir, are you experiencing a medical emergency?" Krill asked, his tentacles twitching with concern. "Worse," I managed. "I have been invited to a human child's birthday party." Krill's pigmentation shifted to the pale green color that indicated existential dread. "Oh no. Sir, you cannot possibly accept. Remember what happened at the summit?" How could I forget? I still heard Emma's screaming in my dreams. But the Council had indeed requested a follow-up assessment, and refusing a direct invitation from a 3-year-old human seemed like the kind of diplomatic incident that could destabilize an entire sector. I accepted the invitation. 2 weeks later, I found myself standing outside a human residence in the suburban area of a city called Portland. The structure was modest by galactic standards, a simple 2-story dwelling with a small yard containing what humans called grass. There were colorful balloons attached to the entrance, and I could already hear high-pitched vocalizations coming from inside. Multiple high-pitched vocalizations. "Krill," I said slowly, "how many human juveniles did Captain Stone say would be attending this event?" Krill checked his datapad. His color shifted to an even paler shade of green. "Sir," she said, "approximately 15 children between the ages of 2 and 5 would be present. 15 potential Emmas, all in one location." This was not a birthday party. This was a tactical nightmare. I briefly considered fleeing back to my ship and claiming a sudden onset of Rigelian rot fever. But before I could execute this plan, the door opened. Captain Stone stood there, wearing casual human clothing rather than her uniform. She looked tired, very tired. The kind of tired that suggested she had been awake for several solar cycles and was running purely on stimulants and willpower. "Coordinator Vorkath, you came. Thank you." She smiled, but it was the smile of someone who had seen things, terrible things, and had somehow survived to tell about it. "Please come in. The party is in full swing." Full swing was an understatement. The interior of the house was chaos incarnate. Small humans were everywhere, moving with the unpredictable patterns of quantum particles. Some were running, some were climbing furniture. One appeared to be trying to dismantle a decorative lamp. Another was spinning in circles for no discernible reason while making siren noises. The walls were decorated with images of something called a unicorn, which I gathered was a fictional Earth creature. There was a table laden with brightly colored foodstuffs that seemed designed to maximize sugar content and minimize nutritional value. Music played at a volume that was just barely below painful, some kind of repetitive melody about a family of sharks, and in the center of it all, wearing a pointed hat and a dress covered in sparkles, was Emma. She saw me immediately. Her eyes went wide with recognition and delight. "Vork!" she shrieked, using what I assumed was her attempt at pronouncing my name. She abandoned whatever toy she had been fighting over with another child and ran directly toward me. I had approximately 2 seconds to brace myself before she collided with my legs at full speed. "You came! You came to my party!" Emma hugged my lower appendages with surprising strength. "I am 4 now. I am so big. Want to see my presents? Want to see my cake? Want to meet my friends?" Before I could respond to any of these questions, she had grabbed my manipulator limb and was dragging me further into the house. For a recently 4-year-old human, she possessed remarkable pulling strength. "This is Marcus," Emma said, pointing to a small male human who was currently trying to fit his entire fist into his mouth. "He eats things. All the things. We have to watch him." Marcus removed his fist long enough to wave at me, then immediately tried to eat a decorative flower. "And this is Sophie," Emma continued, indicating a female child with bright red hair who was glaring at another child with an intensity that suggested imminent violence. "She bites sometimes, but only when people take her toys." Sophie smiled at me. She was missing 2 front teeth. Somehow this made her more menacing rather than less. "And this is Tyler, and he knows all about spaceships, and he wants to ask you questions." Tyler, a small human wearing a shirt depicting what I assumed was a spacecraft, looked at me with eyes full of hope and wonder. "Do you have a spaceship? Can I see it? Does it go fast? How fast? Faster than light? What does faster than light look like? Can I be an astronaut?" My mom says maybe, but Dad says we will see, which means probably not. But I really want to go to space and see aliens, and you are an alien, so can you take me to space? The child had said this in approximately 4 seconds without breathing. I was still processing the first question when Emma dragged me to the next introduction. For the next 20 minutes I met every single child at the party. There was Olivia, who liked to sing but only knew one song. There was Jackson, who was allergic to everything. There was Ava, who insisted she was actually a cat and would only respond to meowing sounds. There was Ethan, who was in a phase where he removed his clothing at random intervals. There was Lily, who spoke entirely in whispers, except when she screamed, which she did without warning or apparent cause. I was exhausted. I had not even participated in any activities yet, and I was already more drained than after a full cycle of diplomatic negotiations. Captain Stone appeared beside me, holding a beverage that smelled strongly of caffeine. "Surviving so far, Coordinator? This is what humans consider a celebration?" I asked weakly. She laughed, though it had a slightly hysterical edge. "This is actually a small party. Some parents invite entire classrooms. That is when things really get interesting." A crash came from the other room. Stone did not even flinch. "That is probably the tower of blocks they have been building," she said calmly. "It falls every 15 minutes or so. They rebuild it. It falls again. This is apparently peak entertainment." "Captain Stone," I said, watching Emma try to teach Krill how to do something called a cartwheel. "The Council wants to understand human apex predator behavior, but I confess I am struggling to see how this gathering demonstrates anything except chaos management." Stone's expression became serious. "Watch carefully, Coordinator. You are about to witness something important." At that moment, Sophie, the biting child, let out a shriek that rivaled Emma's summit performance. Another child, a male named Brandon, had taken her toy. The room went silent. Every child stopped what they were doing and turned to watch. This was apparently significant. Sophie's face went through several color changes. Her fists clenched. Brandon, realizing his mistake, tried to return the toy, but it was too late. Sophie lunged, and then Emma was there. Emma, who had been on the other side of the room teaching Krill about cartwheels, had somehow crossed the distance in seconds. She positioned herself between Sophie and Brandon, her small body creating a physical barrier. "Sophie, no biting," Emma said firmly, using a tone I had not heard from her before. It was authoritative, commanding even. "Use your words. Brandon, you took her toy without asking. Say sorry and give it back." For a moment, nothing happened. Sophie and Brandon stared at Emma. The entire room held its breath. Then Brandon mumbled an apology and handed over the toy. Sophie accepted it, still glaring, but the violence had passed. Emma patted them both on the head like she was royalty granting forgiveness, and just like that, play resumed. "Did you see that?" Stone asked quietly. Emma identified a conflict, assessed the threat level, positioned herself strategically, and resolved the situation through a combination of physical presence and social pressure. She used status, diplomacy, and the threat of consequences all at once. And she is 4. I had seen it. More importantly, I had seen how the other children responded. Emma had status in this group. When she spoke, they listened. Not because she was bigger or stronger, but because she had established herself as a leader through previous interactions. Human children, Stone continued, form complex social hierarchies. They test boundaries, form alliances, compete for resources, and establish pecking orders. It is training, practice for adult social structures. Emma is learning how to lead, how to negotiate, how to use force only when necessary. She is becoming socialized. A timer rang from the kitchen area. Every child's head snapped in that direction. "Cake time!" Emma screamed, and 15 small humans stampeded toward the kitchen like a coordinated military strike. I had never seen anything move with such unified purpose. They flowed around furniture, avoided obstacles, and reached their objective with frightening efficiency. Within seconds, They were all seated at a table that had not been there moments before, looking expectantly at Captain Stone. "Another observation," Stone said as she carried out a cake shaped like a unicorn. "Human children can be herded if you understand their motivations. Food, especially sweet food, is a primary motivator. Watch what happens next." She placed the cake on the table. Every child stared at it with laser focus. But nobody moved, nobody grabbed. They just waited. "Why are they not attacking the food source?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Because they know the rules," Stone explained. "We sing first, then Emma makes a wish and blows out the candles. Then everyone gets a piece. They follow this protocol because they have learned that following it results in cake. Breaking protocol results in no cake. Consequences and rewards, Coordinator. It is how we train apex predators to function in society." The humans sang a song about birthdays that was surprisingly catchy despite its simple structure. Emma closed her eyes, made her wish with the kind of serious concentration usually reserved for disarming explosives, and blew out 4 candles shaped like numbers. Everyone cheered. Cake was distributed according to some system I did not fully understand, but appeared to involve both age and behavior considerations. The children ate with enthusiasm, and for approximately 7 minutes, there was blessed peace. Then Tyler asked me about spaceships again. "Do you really have a ship? Can we see it? Please, 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 please." Other children joined in. "Yeah, show us the spaceship. We want to see, please." They had somehow formed a circle around me. Small faces looked up with enormous eyes that seemed designed specifically to make adults agree to things against their better judgment. This was predation through cuteness, and it was remarkably effective. I looked at Captain Stone for help. She shrugged. "You did bring a shuttle. It is parked on the street. Might as well show them. Just do not let them touch any controls." 10 minutes later, I was giving 15 human children a tour of my personal transport shuttle. This was not how I had envisioned my career progressing. I had negotiated peace treaties, coordinated massive diplomatic events, and managed crises that threatened entire star systems. Yet somehow, explaining to a group of 4-year-olds why they could not press the big red button was the most challenging task I had ever undertaken. That button, I explained for the 5th time, controls the fuel ejection system. Pressing it would be catastrophic. "But why?" Tyler asked. "Because the fuel would be ejected." "But why?" "Because that is what the button does." "But why does it do that?" I was beginning to understand why Captain Stone looked so tired. Emma had claimed the pilot seat and was making spaceship noises while moving the non-functional controls. Several other children were examining the safety equipment with disturbing interest. Marcus was trying to eat a seatbelt. Olivia was singing her one song, which was about a frozen princess and had nothing to do with space travel. Ava was meowing at the navigation system. "Coordinator Vorkath," Emma said seriously from the pilot seat, "when I am bigger, I want to drive a spaceship. Will you teach me?" I looked at this small human sitting in a chair designed for beings 3 times her size, her feet not even reaching the pedals, wearing a sparkly dress and a birthday hat, asking me about piloting spacecraft with complete sincerity. "Emma," I said carefully, "operating a starship requires years of training, extensive knowledge of physics and engineering, and certification from multiple regulatory bodies." She blinked at me. "So yes?" The terrifying part was that I could absolutely picture adult Emma piloting a starship, probably doing it well. Humans had this disturbing tendency to accomplish whatever they set their minds to through sheer stubborn persistence. "We will discuss it when you are older," I said, which I had learned was human adult code for probably not, but I do not want to deal with the tantrum right now. Emma seemed satisfied with this answer and went back to making spaceship noises. After the shuttle tour, we returned to the house for what Captain Stone called the present opening ceremony. This turned out to be another demonstration of controlled chaos. Emma sat in a designated chair while other children handed her wrapped packages. She opened each one with focused intensity, expressed appropriate gratitude regardless of the gift contents, and then immediately began playing with whatever toy had been inside. Other children wanted to play with the new toys too. Negotiations occurred, alliances formed and dissolved. At one point, Sophie and another child named Grace nearly came to blows over a toy horse, but Emma intervened again with her surprisingly effective diplomatic skills. "We can share," Emma declared. "Sophie has it for 5 minutes, then Grace has it for 5 minutes. I will count." Emma could not actually count to 300, but she said numbers in sequence with great confidence, and apparently that was sufficient. Sophie and Grace accepted these terms. "Power sharing and resource management," Captain Stone murmured. "She is learning negotiation tactics that some adults never master." The party continued for another hour. There were games that seemed to involve random running and falling down. There was more cake. There was a distressing incident where Jackson's allergies caused a minor medical response, handled with practiced efficiency by Captain Stone and another parent. There was singing, laughing, crying, arguing, and at least 3 additional minor conflicts that Emma resolved with her combination of authority and charm. And through it all, I watched. I observed. I began to understand. These children were not just chaotic little creatures. They were learning machines, absorbing information about social structures, cause and effect, emotional regulation, and group dynamics. Every interaction was a lesson. Every conflict was training. Every shared toy was practice in cooperation. They were loud, messy, unpredictable, and frequently unreasonable. But they were also adaptable, resilient, socially intelligent, and remarkably persistent. They fell down and got back up. They failed at tasks and tried again. They fought with each other, and then 5 minutes later were best friends again. They were, in other words, exactly what Captain Stone had promised, apex predators in training. As the party wound down and parents began collecting their exhausted, sugar-filled offspring, Emma found me one last time. "Thank you for coming to my party," she said, giving me another one of those full-body hugs that humans seem to consider appropriate affection. "You are my friend now. Friends come to birthday parties." "I am honored, Emma," I said, and meant it. She pulled back and looked at me with those enormous blue eyes. "Vork, can I ask you something important?" "Of course. Do you think there are kids like me on other planets? Like alien kids who have birthday parties and eat cake and play with toys?" I considered the question carefully. In all my travels, I had encountered thousands of species with thousands of different developmental processes. But human childhood, this extended period of protected learning and growth, was relatively unique. "I think," I said slowly, "that you are very special, Emma. Human children are unlike any other young beings in the galaxy." She smiled. "Good. Because when I grow up and get my spaceship, I want to visit all the planets and meet all the aliens and tell them about birthday cake. Everyone should have birthday cake." Captain Stone appeared, carrying a tired-looking Emma's jacket. "Time to say goodbye to our guests, sweetie. People need to get back to their ships." Emma hugged me one more time, then hugged Krill, then went around hugging every adult in the vicinity. It was apparently standard human departure protocol. As Krill and I walked back to our shuttle, passing the deflating balloons and scattered toys in the yard, my assistant finally spoke. "Sir, I believe I understand now. The summit, this party, all of it. Human children are apex predators, not because they are immediately dangerous, but because they are being trained to be dangerous later. Every human adult was once a child like Emma, learning these same lessons about persistence, social manipulation, and refusing to give up." "Correct," I said. "Now multiply Emma's determination by 8 billion. That is how many humans currently exist. 8 billion beings who were all once small, stubborn children who learned that the universe would give them what they wanted if they just persisted long enough." Krill's color shifted to pale green again. "That is a terrifying thought, sir." "Yes," I agreed. "Yes, it is." We boarded the shuttle. As I initialized the launch sequence, I received one final message from Captain Stone. "Thank you for attending. Emma asked me to tell you that you are invited to her birthday party next year too. Also, the council wants to know your assessment. What should I tell them?" I thought about Emma, about her tantrum at the summit and her leadership at the party, about her fearless curiosity and her diplomatic skill, about her absolute refusal to accept no for an answer and her ability to make friends with anyone, even non-human coordinators who had witnessed her complete breakdown. I typed my response. "Tell the Council that humanity's admission to the Galactic Council should proceed immediately. Human children are indeed apex predators, but not in the way we initially feared. They are apex adapters, apex learners, apex socializers. By the time they reach adulthood, they have spent years practicing the exact skills necessary for galactic diplomacy. They know how to negotiate, compromise, form alliances, and persist in the face of opposition. They also know how to throw tantrums when necessary, which, frankly, describes half of all council sessions anyway. Humanity will fit in perfectly. Also, please inform Emma that I will attend her next birthday party, and tell her I will bring a proper gift this time, something educational about starship operations. She is going to need it. I sent the message and initiated launch. As the shuttle lifted off, I could see Emma in the front yard, waving enthusiastically. I waved back. Krill settled into his seat with a sigh. Sir, do you really think it was wise to promise to teach her about starships? I thought about Emma sitting in my pilot chair, making spaceship noises with complete confidence that someday she would actually fly among the stars. I thought about human history, how they had gone from basic tools to space travel in mere thousands of years. I thought about their persistence, their adaptability, their absolute refusal to accept limitations. Krill, I said, in 15 years, Emma is going to be a young adult human with all the training and determination she demonstrated today. She is going to apply to every space academy in the galaxy. She is going to persist through every rejection, learn from every failure, and eventually, somehow, she is going to get her spaceship. The only question is whether we help guide that process or let it happen chaotically. You think she will actually do it? Krill asked. I remembered Emma's face when she asked me about alien children and birthday cake. I remembered her determination to count all of Thraxis's teeth. I remembered her absolute certainty that I would teach her to pilot a starship someday. I would bet my entire career on it. I said, never bet against a human child who has decided what they want. You will lose, every time. As we broke atmosphere and entered the void of space, I looked back at Earth one last time. Somewhere down there, Emma was probably already planning next year's birthday party. Probably already asking questions about spaceships. Probably already practicing her counting so she could navigate by the stars. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, but I did. Humanity had shown us their apex predator, a 4-year-old girl with a sparkly dress, a missing shoe, and an unshakable belief that the universe belonged to her and her friends. And honestly, she was probably right. In a few years, there would be millions of Emmas graduating, entering careers, joining organizations, exploring the stars. They would bring their persistence, their curiosity, their social intelligence, and their complete inability to accept impossible as an answer. They would negotiate treaties, build alliances, explore new worlds, and occasionally throw the diplomatic equivalent of tantrums when things did not go their way. And we would welcome them, because honestly, what choice did we have? You cannot stop an apex predator. You can only hope to point them in a productive direction and stay out of their way. I set course for Council headquarters to file my final report, title, Assessment of Human Apex Predator Demonstration. Conclusion, approve with caution. Humans are coming, and they are bringing their children. Recommendation, invest heavily in soundproofing for Council chambers. We are going to need it, I smiled despite myself. The galaxy was about to get much more interesting. And somewhere in Portland, a 4-year-old girl was making spaceship noises and dreaming of stars. The universe did not stand a chance.